Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on? YouTube Metal Complex here, and today I've got a battle video to share with you guys. This is a style of video that I have not done in a while. We're going to be comparing the Benchmade Mini Freek and the Hogue Ritter RSK MK1 G2 Mini, which are extremely similar. I am hardly the first person to compare these two knives. Ever since, Doug Ritter started collaborating with Hogue to do this essentially better version of the Benchmade Griptilian. Benchmade, its Griptilian is still a good knife, but it's kind of been left in the shadow up until the point when they released the Freek series knives, the Mini Freek, the regular Freek, and the Super Freek, and then this upgraded version of the Mini Freek with the S90V and carbon fiber scales. And in my opinion, this knife is better than the Benchmade Griptilian. But is it better than this guy? Pros and cons. That's what we're going to talk about today. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and check out my Patreon link down in the description if you'd like to support the channel and get your hands on some cool stickers. Your support would mean the world to me. All right, let's get something out of the way here real quick. There's no reason to get this all the way to the end. There are a lot of people who are just wondering about best value, about dollar for dollar, what they're getting. There's no reason to do, if that's what you're looking for, there's no reason to drag you through a huge comparison. Hands down, the best value is the RSK MK1 G2. For anybody who doesn't know, this knife can be picked up exclusively at KnifeWorks. That is the only place that you can pick up this knife. It is available. You can pick it up for $140. That's going to get, and that's the mini one. The large one is a little bit more money. This mini one, $140. It's G10 and 20 CV. So the original run of the large ones was M390. I don't know if they'll bounce back and forth or not. Yeah, that's still one of the best value American production knives out there. The base version of this guy is coming it's like FRN and some rubbery material, or it's GT. I can't remember what the combination of the materials is. And then S30V, and it runs you a little less at like 120, something like that, somewhere around that mark. In my opinion, if you don't care about the steel and you're just looking for the least expensive versions of each knife, then the Mini Freek is going to be the least, it's got the least expensive variant, right? If you're looking for best value dollar for dollar, in my opinion, it's going to be this guy. And then this one right here, if you're wondering what they come in at, the carbon fiber and S90V is the upgraded version of the Mini, and that comes in at like $265, which is pretty pricey. I did the review on this guy, and I was like, it's a good design, right? That's not really what I'm discussing here today. I just wanted to get that out of the way for anybody, just wanting to find out, because these are both excellent knives. In terms of the design, they are both wonderful designs. There's just different variants available at different prices, and you can pick that for yourself if that's really what you're after. I'll be linking this guy and all the different variants down below, as well as this guy, and you can just go pick those up. What I want to discuss here is the design, and which one I like better and why. You can't choose wrong. If you're looking for one of these, either way, if you end up with one of them, then in my opinion, you chose correctly. But the reason I'm doing this battle is because it's pretty rare that I come to enjoy a smaller knife. My preferences in terms of size is usually about 7 3/4 inches on the small side, up to about 8.5 inches, and I like around a 3.5 inch blade. Right? Don't generally enjoy smaller knives, but I enjoyed both of these so much, and they are so similar. I thought it might be kind of fun to compare and kind of dig into what I do and don't like about each of them. We'll go ahead and get a measurement of each one. We're not going to do the whole size comparison thing. We're just going to do the measurements. Overall length of the RSK MK1 G2 Mini is coming in at about 6.8 inches overall. Your blade length is coming in definitely under 3 inches at about 2.8 inches, and then your cutting edge is also about 2.8 inches. The Mini Freek is coming in at 7 inches overall. Blade length is absolutely right at 3 inches. That's going to be a legality issue in some places, right? It depends on who's measuring it. That's something you're going to have to be aware of. And then your cutting edge is actually only about 2.8. So both of them have about the exact same cutting edge, despite the, well, looking at this right here, you can see the Mini Freek might have ever so slightly more cutting edge, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. That is completely and totally trivial. Blade length is longer, but positioning of the thumb stud makes that kind of absolutely trivial, right? So that's something to be aware of there. What I want to do here is go over, the mechanisms real quick for anybody who doesn't know. I mean, there's both axis lock. This is called the Able lock with Hogue, but it is essentially a clone of the axis lock. It's totally okay that they do that because the patent ended on the axis lock a little bit ago, so other companies are able to use it. Like I said, the Mini Freek, the standard version comes in with a combination of FRN and some other rubbery material, I think, and then an S30V blade. That's all fine. It's plenty durable. S30V is plenty well-rounded. The only version of this guy is the 20CV and G10. You have a couple of choices for G10, both orange and black. Whereas the Mini Freek, you just have options, I think, in the blade coating, either coated or uncoated. And this guy also, I believe, has coated and uncoated blade options. The Freek has a satin finished blade, or it's not really satin. It's kind of micro tumbled. This has got more of a heavy tumbling on it, which I actually like a little bit more. It doesn't really matter. Both of the blades are plenty knocked down on what would be an otherwise very sharp corner if it were satin finished. I would imagine on the DLC blades it might be a little bit sharper because they just, grind. They don't knock the corners down. They just coat it, but either way, it's fine. Both are stainless. The S30V on the standard version is going to hold an edge. Not quite as long as the M390, and it's not quite as stainless, but it's still plenty good. For EDC, which is the scenario that you would use this knife in, it's really not going to make that much of a difference. It depends on, again, where you put your money. This is not, the idea with this video is not necessarily to come to a definitive conclusion that is perfect for everybody. It's just to give you the information so you can choose it for yourself. And then I'll tell you at the end which one is my favorite and why. The upgraded version of this, the one that's more expensive, comes in S90V, which you can see right there, and carbon fiber. What's the benefit of S90V over M390? I know most of you watching this already know, but for people who don't know, S90V actually has better edge retention, or if the heat treat is done correctly, the composition will yield better edge retention. It's not quite as stainless, and it is definitely harder to sharpen, but in this geometry and this size, S90V actually makes a lot more sense than some of the larger knives that we see it in the knife world. So honestly, all the steels that are available between all of these knives, I think, are plenty appropriate. The geometry is great, right? It's excellent. What benefit do you get with carbon fiber? It's lightweight, it's plenty strong, but not really. In terms of utility, not really anything. If you like carbon fiber, you like how it looks, it helps you justify the price, the more expensive one, then by all means, go for it. But you're not really gaining anything there other than just, it just looks really nice, right? The two different blades, I want to talk about this real quick. So both blades are, ground really, really well. The Mini RSK has a thinner blade. I'll go ahead and measure that for you here real quick. Just making sure it's zeroed out. Blade stock on the Mini RSK is coming in very, very thin. And then on the Mini Freek here, we're coming in just a little bit thicker. Not much, right? But they both have roughly the same blade height. Now, this one right here has had a different edge put on it, making it a little bit thinner. But truthfully, they're both ground so well. I mean, any difference in performance is not going to be something that you can easily measure while you're... Like, if you're using these knives, in my opinion, the way that I would use is I would carry them as a general EDC knife, something that I got out periodically, maybe just a few times a week to make a simple cut, just something efficient, get the knife out, make the cut, and then move on. And I know that there are people out there who will take these types of knives hiking and do crazy stuff. That's not what the vast majority of people watching this video are going to do with it, right? So as far as what you're actually going to do with it, both blades are excellent. The Ritter has, I would say, a slightly taller flat, and it extends, the way that I'm seeing it here, just ever so slightly further down the blade, but you can see the drop there towards the edge. Even though that is the case, this starts out a little bit thinner, and this one's a little bit thicker. So the end result on both factory edges is probably going to be pretty similar. I suppose I could discuss that into the ground and do all this testing, but again, for the final result, what you're going to be using it for, it's really not going to matter. I think what is important to point out about the blades is the difference in the thumb stud position. Roughly the same amount of cutting edge, roughly the same type of geometry. The thumb stud on this guy is actually placed a little bit more optimally, in my opinion, for deployment. Now, that doesn't mean that the thumb stud on the Ritter Hogue is not placed well, but you can see there it's kind of a trade-off here. This one just feels a little bit more organic to deploy. It's just, I got a little bit more room, and it just seems to be a little bit more natural than this guy. All right, but we're talking about like an A- positioning to an A position. Like if these were papers that I was grading, I'd give this one an A- and this one an A, right? Now the trade-off here is that this thumb stud ends up being ever so slightly in the cutting path, while this guy it might be ever so slightly in the cutting path, but I think there's more, well, the distance between where my index finger is and where the edge, like if I was going to cut straight down into a box, right? Quite a bit of space here. On this guy, I'm much closer to it. Not much, I mean, like not a crazy amount, but we're talking about an inch versus probably 2/3 of an inch. So if you're really cutting into some thick cardboard, that little space there can make a little bit of a difference in terms of how much pressure you're able to apply to it. But that's a pretty specific circumstance. This thumb stud is ever so slightly easier to engage, but it is going to hang up on material, ever so slightly more depending on how you're cutting with it. Most of the time, the cuts that you're going to make are going to be more diagonal, right? It's not really going to be something that you get hung up on. It's in terms of the actual thumb studs and the texturing. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's just like pick the one that you think looks nicer. They're both incredibly easy to engage. It doesn't really matter if I'm using the left or right hand. And that's another beautiful thing about both of these knives is that both of them are fully ambidextrous because of the nature of the axis enable lock. Left-handed people, you can enjoy this. They're both only going to be tip up, which in my opinion is the only way to carry a pocket knife, but everybody's got a different opinion on that. Tip up, right or left-handed carry. Let's go ahead and talk about the body here. So both knives use a T10 pivots. This one is a larger pivot screw, but the actual head is still T10, and that's fine. I love that about Benchmade and Hogue is that they're using those. Is very easy to adjust. The internals, the pivot barrels, as far as I know, are both D-shaped, which means they're not going to be free spinning. Now, where they differ, though, is the number of body screws. And this is important if you're going to disassemble these, right? Disassembling anything with an axis lock or axis lock style lock is not super fun. So anything that can be done to make that process a little bit easier is very welcome. On the Ritter Hogue, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 body screws. And on this guy, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 body screws. And then you've got 3 screws for this pocket clip, 2 screws for this one. But, right, if we're going to talk about it, let's bring this up real quick. Benchmade pocket clips, well, this one, immediately people are going to look at that and go, I like the Ritter Hogue clip better. You can get a Benchmade clip that they will send you to switch out for this one that is essentially exactly, very, very similar to the Ritter Hogue clip. It also uses 2 screws and it is also deep carry. With that being an option that is readily available to you, and I don't think it costs anything. I don't know that for sure, but I don't think it costs anything. We'll just go ahead and pretend they're the same clip, because that's the first thing I'd do is switch this clip out. But anyways, roughly the same number of screws on the outside here. The difference is that the Benchmade uses T6 and the Ritter Hogue uses T8. That's a definite win in my book for the Ritter Hogue. T8, in my experience, is way, way less likely to strip. T6, I have definitely stripped those. I've definitely screwed up the teeth on my bits, and it actually has been with, more often than not, with Benchmade knives. Now, I don't think they add nearly as much Loctite to some of their newer designs as they did their older ones. The ones that I screwed up were some older Benchmade Griptilians when I was trying to customize them. I can't tell you how many times I stripped those. Now, Benchmade will still send you new screws, but it is frustrating. You don't want to have to do that every single time, right? So that's something that I very much appreciate about the Ritter Hogue. Both of these knives use a sort of a cartridge style liner. Let's see if I can get some dimmer light in. I don't want to put too much light in there, but if you can see, there's like a cartridge liner that extends about to where that bottom screw is. And it's a little bit more on this guy. On this guy, it's a little bit shorter, It's only about the first, well, it's about 50% of the knife, and then maybe the cartridge liner on this guy is maybe, let's see if we can look. Can we look in here? The light modes I've got on this flashlight are either too dim or too bright, but you can see it in there. It's maybe 65% or so. I don't know that there's really any measurable difference in terms of structural integrity when it comes to the length of the cartridge liner. They're both there. They both have weight reduction, benefits. We're gonna go ahead and weigh both of them here real quick now that we've gone over all the other little microscopic things. The Ritter Hogue comes in at 2.65 ounces, and the Mini Freek, this guy's coming in at 2.57 ounces. So, I mean, to me, that is an extremely trivial difference. The regular Mini Freek will probably, I don't know if it'll actually weigh a little bit less because of the FRN, right? To me, anything that's under 3 ounces is a meaningless, I mean, like, if it was like I was comparing a 1.5 ounce knife to a 2.8 ounce knife, I just don't care. Both of these are going to be incredibly easy to carry. This guy, the Mini Freek, is actually going to be a little bit thicker, and that's because of, well, even down here, it's in some places it's thicker, but like at the base, it's really not that much. And then up here, you can see it's a little bit thicker. They've opted for, I guess, just some different shaping and, kind of how it comes down to the end here. But the difference within it too, again, is just basically, it's so marginal. It doesn't matter to me. Both of these are incredibly comfortable to carry. I actually don't mind either of them in like sweatpants or athletic shorts. If I'm wearing jeans, right? I mean, the difference between the two, like if I've got the better clip on this guy, I mean, even this clip, which I don't like as much, it's just fine. How they carry, it's all so unbelievably similar. It just, there's a whole bunch of little teeny tiny details we'd come down to, and talk about. I don't want this video to be too long. In terms of lockup, they're both great. This guy's absolutely solid. This is a newer Benchmade design, and you guys can see here that the blade is actually centered on this guy. The blade is also centered on this guy. Both of these are, neither of these are absolutely brand new. They're owned by viewers who sent them in. So fit and finish, all the way around, it's great. This one's got a little bit of extra flair. The special version of the Mini Freek, it's got the red standoffs and the red thumb studs. God, brain fart. No functional advantage. It just looks nice to some people. That's just going to be an aesthetic thing. They both run on phosphor bronze. In terms of how smooth they are, I'll pull both of the locks there. I guess you could say the Ritter Hogue is a little bit more broken in, but they're both incredibly smooth and easy to manipulate, right? I'm right-handed and both of them are just fine. Everything is so similar. Truthfully, what it comes down to for me is how organic the thing feels in hand. And it's not just in terms of deployment or release of the lock. They're about the same there. Holding this guy, I can get a full 4-finger grip. Pocket clip bites into my palm just a little bit. Not quite as good as the full size, but that's the same thing with this guy. The full size I preferred a little bit more because of the position of the pocket clip. Both of these would be better if they just had shorter clips, but they don't, so whatever. I think you actually can get a shorter clip for this guy. The clip that comes on, well, the one that it's like the bug out clip. This guy right here. I do not know if this clip is modular with this guy, but it should be with the Benchmade, so that could solve the problem there. So technically, maybe the Mini Freek has a better pocket clip option all the way around. In terms of the ergonomic lines, they are both very, very similar. For whatever reason, this one, the Mini Freek, feels a little bit more natural and a little bit more comfortable to me. I can't tell you exactly why. The texture pattern on this is definitely more aggressive than the carbon fiber on this upgraded one, and it's even more aggressive than the standard one that has a little teeny tiny bit of texturing. But I think it's maybe a little bit of excess contouring, maybe a little bit of excess thickness up here in the upper end of the scale, and maybe just the slight difference in the lines. It is very slight. You can see there everything is very, very similar. But the combination of the hand position here and then maybe this ramp right here, it just feels a little bit more like it's made for my hand. It feels very molded to my hand. And this one's good. I like it. But I'm feeling more of this like just regular angle ramp here, and then more, you know, this area right here is just a little bit sharper. It's a little bit more angular, right? And then that texturing is definitely biting in a little bit. And that's great if you're trying to get, you know, trying to make sure that the knife's not going to come out of your hand. But for whatever reason, the Mini Freek just feels just that extra little teeny tiny bit of comfort. When it comes to the larger ones, the funny thing is, I've got them both right here. The larger Ritter Hogue and the larger Super Freek. I love both of these knives. These are both mine, and I use and carry both of them. When it comes to the larger one, I actually prefer the Ritter Hogue over the Super Freek, but it's just slightly. It's just a little teeny tiny bit of preference there. And I can't tell you exactly why. I think it's because the Super Freek is just a little bit too big. But that extra size, you know, when it translates to the mini counterpart, actually makes this one just a little bit preferable. It's just a little bit longer. It's just a little bit better shaped, you know, for my hand. The fact that you can get that smaller clip on it would make this one just a little bit better, right? And I don't mind the amount that this is actually in the cutting path. It really doesn't bother me all that much. Most of my cuts are going to be like this anyway, right? And it's the slight advantage in terms of the placement of the thumb stud that makes me prefer that. So it's those little teeny tiny little things, right? This one benefit in the T8 screws, definitely. And then again, you know, to circle back around to what I said at the beginning of the video, value, right? This is a better value than this, right? If we're comparing the carbon fiber and S90V version directly to the G10 and M390 version of the Ritter Hogue, yeah, 100%, this is a better value, right? But sometimes, you know, there's people looking at this going, I don't mind the amount that I would need to spend for either of them. I just want the one that feels like the more comfortable tool. So if you think like me and you consider profile and all the little teeny tiny things you pick up on when you're carrying it, right? I kind of like the lines of the Mini Freek just a little bit better. If your hands are substantially smaller than mine and you prefer some of the excess texturing, right, then maybe you want to go with this guy, especially if you're, you know, counting every single dollar. But I don't know. If it came down to it, right, if all of these were free, we had every version of the Mini RSK out here and every version of the Mini Freek out here, and I didn't have to worry about how much they cost, I'd probably go with this guy. Right? Dollar for dollar value, it's definitely this guy. There are probably additional elements that I could have gone over here, you know, and I could discuss this into the ground, but you can see just the things that we discussed here today. The video is already 22 minutes long. Like I said, there'll be links down below for each of these where you can pick these up, pick the one that's right for you. Both of them are excellent. Again, let me stress that you can't choose wrong here. Both knives are truly excellent knives. The Mini Freek and the Super Freek are two of the best knives that Benchmade has ever come out with. And the Mini RSK and the large RSK are two of the best value American production knives in existence. You know, absolutely. They're wonderful. Again, you know, I've said this in other Axis lock videos. The downside to these style of locks is they do use Omega springs, and it is very rare, but they can break. I don't want to say they do break. They can. It's very rare. I'm going to guess probably, you know, 1 in 500 or 1 in 1,000 will snap prematurely. Make sure you add a little tiny bit of lubricant in there periodically. I use break-free CLP to keep those things running strong. But yeah. Guys, I don't know that there really needs to be much more here. I was going to talk about positioning of the lanyard hole, but both of them have the lanyard hole prioritized over the pocket clip, right? So it is what it is. Two very excellent knives. I hope that I pointed out enough here to help you guys who are actually looking. I hope that I helped you make a decision. That's the ultimate goal. But you can't be wrong. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that metal complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.